Welcome to Ask Alan Anything. Today we are talking about social unrest and the issues that it can create in your workplace, the employment issues. I'm Alan Thayer, Oregon business lawyer and the host of Ask Alan Anything. Talking about issues of race is difficult. A lot of people have decided to make their thoughts known on social media and have been criticized, some from the left, some from the right, black commentators, white commentators. So this is a difficult issue for anyone to address, particularly business people when talking with their employees. But there are problems that are created or could be created by the current unrest, problems that you need to address. So today we're going to talk about risk in your workplace, opportunities for your organization, and begin a discussion on actions that you can take. So I believe in starting with the bad news first. We save the good news for later. So we'll start with the risk. And the first risk is workplace disruption. As an employer, you want employees that are doing the work of your organization. Hopefully they're doing it happily. Hopefully they're finding fulfillment in what they do and value in your organization and your organization's mission. But you certainly don't want them quarreling with each other. And if you don't address issues as they come up, there is a serious risk of workplace disruption. Even worse than workplace disruption, or maybe following workplace disruption, is the possibility of lawsuits. And lawsuits can occur in a couple of different fashions. First of all, are discrimination lawsuits. You didn't hire me because in this case, I am black or I am a person of color. You didn't promote me because I am black or a person of color. You're paying me less because of my race. You laid me off because of my race. One of the things that we've found is when the national spotlight is put on various discrimination issues, we see an increase in those sorts of claims and in those sorts of lawsuits. The Clarence Thomas Supreme Court hearings, and I know that some of our viewers remember that, and some of our viewers may be a little young to remember that. But when Clarence Thomas was going through confirmation hearings with the United States Senate, Anita Rice claimed that he had made improper advances to her when she was a clerk for him as a judge at a lower court level. As a result of that, the number of sexual harassment claims soared. It has soared when other issues have been brought to the spotlight. And here too, we can expect that at least in some workplaces, there will be an increased awareness of discrimination lawsuits and a new light put on that, which can result in increased claims. So that is a definite risk for employers. But even if the owner, if HR, if the management of the organization is not engaging in discriminatory conduct, but other workers in the workplace, maybe even workers at the same level or at a lower level than a employee, but if they are treating the person in a manner that is perceived to be hostile, then it can lead to hostile workplace lawsuits. Very, very real risk for employers. And it is something that you need to be aware of, that you need to look out for. And if there's any inappropriate conduct in their workplace, you need to deal with that immediately. All right, next. And this is something you may not have heard much about, but there is the Oregon Pay Equity Act and claims under that act are a real risk. Now, there's been a gradual phase-in of the Oregon Pay Equity Act. The act was adopted in 2017, and you haven't heard much about it, but I suspect you're going to, and the requirements that it puts on businesses are really significant. The Federal Pay Equity Act, which is went into effect, I think, in 1963, applies to equal pay for men and women in the workplace doing comparable work. The Oregon Pay Equity Act actually applies to all protected classes. In fact, there's a list of the protected classes on the screen. So it goes much further than the Federal Pay Equity Act. Going into the details of the Oregon Pay Equity Act is beyond the scope of this presentation today. We can talk about it later, but there are a couple things that you need to be aware of. One is that compensation is not just the wages or the salaries paid to an employee, but bonuses, benefits, fringe benefits, equity-based compensation. If two employees are paid a different amount, an analysis is conducted to determine whether any of that differential is for a prohibited reason. There is a safe harbor as to punitive damages if employers conduct pay equity audits once every 3 years. But it's a safe harbor just for punitive damages, not for compensation for differences in pay which are determined to be impermissible. As a result of this act, employers must change how they screen applicants, how they negotiate pay and benefits, how they track employee performance, and the compensation paid to their employees. This is a significant risk. Now, as to discrimination claims, people may say, hey, we have a diverse workforce. Discrimination is not a problem in our organization. And maybe it's not, but it should be a concern in two regards. You have a diverse workforce. Diversity and discrimination does not apply to initial hiring, to the initial hire. It also applies to compensation. It complies to all terms and conditions of employment, whether they are promoted, the job duties they're assigned, the shifts they're on. It is an issue that you need to be constantly aware. Also, with a diverse workforce, you have the issue of hostile workplace claims. Some employees saying inappropriate things to other employees based upon their race or any other protected class. You need to be constantly vigilant on these issues. And just because you have a diverse workforce, that doesn't mean that you are in good shape. You say, okay, well, our workforce is all white. We've been here for a long time. We know each other well. Things are going good. We don't have to worry about discrimination claims. We don't have to worry about hostile work environment. Well, maybe. You should always monitor what is said in your workplace. And by monitor, just be aware. I'm not advocating for recordings. But monitor what's being said in your workplace. And when inappropriate conduct is made or comments are made, you need to address those. And with the political issues, with some of the violence, with differences of opinion, people could be expressing things in your workplace that, okay, maybe you think that all of you think the same and it isn't a problem, but trust me, it could be a problem. There are people in workforces who may be sensitive to these issues for reasons that you're not aware. And there also are advocates who send people in to employment and to employers, to businesses, to file an employment application, not because they want to be hired, but because they're testing the employer. And if a person's black and they're not offered an interview, or the interview doesn't go well, they could bring a claim against your business. So whether you have a diverse workplace or a non-diverse place, the non-discrimination policies apply to you, non-discrimination practices apply to you, and the way people conduct themselves in the workplace applies to you as well. Okay, those are some of the risks. I'm sure there's others that I haven't thought about. But now let's talk about opportunities. And there is one big opportunity. Yesterday, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce conducted a national summit on opportunity. I attended that summit, and a point was made that I think was a good one. The demographics of the labor force and the demographics of your customers, consumers in the United States, are changing. Even if you are a business-to-business business, the people who you deal with in your customers will be changing as well. And that by making yours a diverse workplace today and welcoming people of color and having people of color sitting at the table, you will get a variety of opinions that will help you prepare for a more culturally diverse future. So action, what can you do? The first thing you need to do is talk to your employees. Now, I'm not going to go into much detail on this because I actually did a video with Michelle Robinson. And if you are on our Legal Briefs email list, then you received a link to that video. If you're not one of our Legal Briefs subscribers, underneath this video on YouTube, there is a link to that interview. And Michelle Robinson gave great practical suggestions for employers on how to begin talking about issues of race and justice with employees in your workplace. It's simple and it's good, and the video is only about 10 minutes long. So I would encourage everyone to watch that if they haven't watched it. And then if you have watched it and if you agree that it's good, share that with other people in your organization. In fact, share this video as well with other people in your organization. You'll be able, I'll talk at the end if I remember on how will be able to access this video after the webinar is over. Okay, talk to employees. We talked about that. Another action is meet people that do not look like you. So at this national summit I participated in yesterday, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was one of the guests. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has a foundation called the Skyhook Foundation. And the Skyhook Foundation has nothing to do with basketball, has nothing to do with this famous skyhook, has nothing to do with sports. Instead, it is promoting STEM education, science, engineering, technology, and math to communities of color, to students in those communities. And he talked about meeting people that do not look like you. I think that's good for each of us as a person. I think that's good for managers of an organization. But when talking to your employees, that would also be something good for employees as well. All we're saying is meet people, talk to people. And that down the road could make a big difference. Next action. Remind your employees of your non-discrimination policies. Every time there is a national incident when discrimination issues are raised, you should send a notice to all of your employees to remind them of your non-discrimination policies and your zero tolerance for discrimination and for stupid comments in the workplace. As part of that reminder, you should also remind employees that they have a duty to report discrimination or harassment that they experienced or that they observed. Also remind them that they have a duty to participate in any investigation. In fact, speaking of investigations, that's the next action item, is remind employees of your complaint process. Now, hopefully you have a non-discrimination policy. Hopefully you have a complaint process. If you haven't documented those policies, or if you haven't updated those policies because the law has changed and additional classes have been added in recent years, give me a call or talk to another attorney knowledgeable in this area, and then share these policies with your employees. Okay, if you have questions that you would like to ask, you can do so by commenting in the comment box. We are trying a different approach for streaming these Ask Alan Anything webinars. My assistant Stephanie, I believe, is watching, and I'm going to ask Stephanie if she would try sending me a comment just so I can make sure that that the comment section works. Do 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 do. Waiting on Stephanie. Okay, well, evidently you have to log into YouTube first in order to ask questions. That's good to know. If you have a question and you're not able to ask it in the comments, send me an email, Alan, A-L-A-N, at thinkilg.com. Alan at think, THINKILG.com. And we will answer your questions in this area. The last thing I want to mention, there will not be an Ask Alan Anything webinar next Friday. Next Friday is July 3rd, and I suspect many of you will be taking the day off to have a 3-day weekend to celebrate our country's independence. So instead, we are going to meet again on July 10th. Now, on July 10th, we're going to talk about the special session of the Oregon legislature that is meeting right now. As we sit here, there are hearings going on in Salem and virtually. What actions did the Oregon legislature take? We're going to talk about that. I mean, we don't know what they're going to take because they haven't taken those actions yet, but by July 10th, we will know. Also, though, it is highly anticipated that there will be a second special session after the state's new economic revenue forecast. I believe that is due out on July 20th. And after that revenue forecast, there will be another special session. So we're going to do a preview of that special session as well. In helping with that, I will have two guests. Oregon State Senator James Manning from Lane County will join us, as will Brittany Quick-Warner, who is the CEO of the Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce. Brittany has been our guest once before, did a great job, and I know that you will love the insights that Senator Manning and Brittany are able to bring to us. So once again, if you have questions that you weren't able to ask because you weren't logged in on YouTube, we'll address that in the future. But if you have questions you want to ask, send me an email, Alan, A-L-A-N, at thinkilg.com. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your joining us for these webinars. And remember to to send me emails in advance if there's a question that you would like to ask, and in this instance, if there's anything on the issues we discussed today, send me an email and we will address it. Oh, finally, if you're viewing this webinar on demand and are not on our LegalBriefs email list, in the notes below, there is a link on how you can sign up for the LegalBrief emails. And then that way you will receive notice of future webinars and resources and tools and articles that we make available to clients and friends of the law firm. Once again, thank you, everyone, and we will see you again on July 10th. Have a great weekend and a happy and safe 4th of July.